for those who haven't been following this, it's not basketball season, so maybe you're out there. But Ben Simmons, the embattled Ben Simmons, of course, after that horrific playoff series against Atlanta, in which he refused to shoot, was scared to shoot, shot horribly from the foul line, it was clear that the Sixers were looking to move on from him and trade him. I mean, Doc Rivers said he doesn't know if he can win a championship with him as his point guard. Joel Embiid blamed him for, the collapse in that game. And then Ben kind of turned it on them and was like, you know what? I want out. You can't fire me because I quit. It kind of that kind of thing. And now Ben Simmons is taking it to the next level and said he will not show up for training camp. So he wants them to trade him. And there's been a lot of speculation. Minnesota, Toronto have been teams trying to get him. And there's been speculation about Portland, obviously, with Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, Bradley Beal in Washington. But one of the most persistent ones has been the notion that he could go to Golden State and join Steph and Clay and Draymond. And there was a story today in The Athletic that kind of poo-pooed that notion, saying it's not likely to happen. So stop talking about it. They did have talks, but Daryl Morey, Rob, the Sixers GM, he has such a unrealistic asking price for Ben Simmons. He called up Golden State before the draft, says, I want Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, who was last year's number 3 pick, the 7th and 14th picks from this year's draft, and 2 more future first rounders. Golden State said no and hung up the phone. Haven't talked to him since, according to this story. Rob, I want to, and Joe Lacob, the owner of the the Warriors, and his son is very prominent in the front office. They've talked about this, and Rob G's going to read us a quote from Lacob talking about what their game plan is and why, at least at this point, they really aren't likely to get Ben Simmons. Rob, do you have that quote?
I do. He said it right after the draft. He spoke to The Athletic. Here's what he said, quote, the more likely path, instead of pushing all the chips all in, and the path that I think as an owner I feel most comfortable with, quite frankly, is to bridge the gap to the future. We've got 3 or 4 contracts and big players that are still in their early 30s, still have quite a bit of time to go, especially in this day and age. If we can kind of have a Wiseman and a Kuminga and a Moody and a Poole help in the meantime, great. They don't have to be awesome next year. Then he added later, if we can't win now, you should look at Joe Lacob's, Bob Myers, and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and say, you just weren't good enough.
Rob, what are your thoughts on there? Because basically it sounds like he doesn't want to go all the way in right now, in large part because he wants to build sustained excellence, if you want to go that far. But, like a team that's constantly in the playoffs and on the borderline of that contender status, I guess. That's what he's looking to build. You agree with this approach, Rob, or should he go all the way in?
I think the Warriors are making a horrendous mistake in that they think like some long window they're going to win 4 years from now or something. It's win now at all costs, as long as you have Steph Curry and you hope that Klay Thompson can come back and be somewhat close to what he was. And Draymond, was going the other way, Chris. What are you looking at with some of the teams that are already in the West, and then the teams you'd have to beat to actually win a championship? With that core, go out and get the best available player for the next 4 years, Chris, like a guy who can play and could add to the team. And I'm not talking about that crazy trade Philadelphia with 9 first round. I'm not talking about that.
Come back to earth, Daryl Morey. Come back.
Okay, when they come back to earth, then I would pick up the phone. But I'm not ripping them for not taking that deal. But they didn't do anything at the trade, at the draft.
You're
Chris.
just looking at their philosophy.
Yeah, what they're thinking, and you can't do both. I think it's a mistake to think you're going to do both. And they haven't won in a couple years, and Durant's not on that team anymore. Klay hasn't played in 2 years. I'm just saying, you don't want to look up 4 years from now and wondering why you haven't been able to compete for a championship again. And I think, and then they'll say, well, that didn't make sense. All these young guys, I get it, Chris. It was like Boston when they had the 25 first-round picks. Right? What did that get them? Did that get them anything?
Nothing. And they've wasted that.
That was
Whether
a waste.
It's wasted or it just hasn't, developed into anything. You're right.
But do you remember everybody was like, Danny Ainge got all these first-round picks. The Celtics are going to be loaded for a long time. Right. He's out of a job, Chris. He's out of a job. Think about that.
Right. Well, Rob, what's happened is a lot of these front office executives, in the name of self-preservation, have convinced these owners that the value of a draft pick is way beyond what it actually is. Rob, how many lottery picks have the Sacramento Kings had recently? How many lottery picks did the Clippers have for all those years?
Do you remember during Elgin Baylor's run as GM?
Right,
Chris?
every year they're in the lottery, at the top a lot of times. I'm sorry, hear me and hear me well. Most lottery picks, Rob, don't pan out.
Yep.
Most lottery picks don't pan out. We're not even talking about first round picks, 15 through 30. We're talking about lottery picks. And I'm not saying it's not good to have some draft picks. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying let's bring a little balance to this situation. And what's happened is these GMs, they tell the owners, they sell them on, I got all these picks. We're set up to really be funky in the next few years, over the next decade, because we have so many draft picks. And it buys them time. When your team is weak, you point to the draft picks, you tell the owner, that's all right. Because look at this kid at Georgia. Look at this kid at Duke, wherever. Look at this high school kid. Look at this kid in the G League. We can get him. I mean, there's self-preservation. But it's not helping your team.
Chris, there are no 5-year plans. That's all changed. And that's why I'm saying you should be trying, when you have the players you have, to put together the best team you have to win that year. Or maybe that year and maybe the next year, 2 years. But if you're looking like, these guys will develop in 3 or 4 years and then we'll have a good team again, I just don't buy into that. I want
Steph
production.
Curry and Klay Thompson.
That's what I mean.
No, you're right. Like, you have to maximize these guys' window. Period. The end. And if you fall off a cliff after they're done, but you get 1 or 2 more titles, so be it. Everybody falls off.
Right.
Rob, the Lakers are by far the best NBA franchise, I think, period. But, obviously you can argue Boston because they both have 17 championships. But lately, since the 1980 going forward, the Lakers have by far been the best franchise in the NBA. And they've had down times. They don't last long because they got good leadership. They've had good leadership, but they've had down periods. So it's inevitable. All right, but when you get a Hall of Fame superstar player who can win championships, you owe it to your fans, you owe it to that player, you owe it to your organization to try to maximize his window. Forget, if you can still have some good young players when he's gone, fine. That's nice. That's icing. But the number one priority needs to be building. And you're right. Philadelphia is out of their minds. They're bonkers. When you come to us with something realistic, then we can talk. But the Warriors should be pounding the pavement, Rob. They should be beating the bushes. They should be talking to other teams around the league. I think they should be going hard after a Bradley Beal. I do like Ben Simmons there. I think they need to try to move Draymond in that deal. I don't know that I like him and Draymond together. It's possible.
He could be the fresh Draymond. You know what I mean?
He's a younger, better version of Draymond. The only thing he doesn't have, obviously, the motor and the inspirational abilities the intangibles that Draymond has. But the game is very similar. in that regard, the only thing Draymond has over him is that Draymond will at least take the shot, right? He'll at least take the three-pointer.
Right. It might not go in, but he'll take it.
But he'll take it to remain a threat. And so Ben's got to get to that point. But Rob, Ben Simmons, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, if they could somehow keep it Andrew Wiggins, I mean, that's a nice squad. And you're right. Look at what the Lakers are doing. Are the Lakers worried about the future? I mean, we talked about it last year, Rob. In their quest to keep Taylor Horton Tucker, they didn't go after Kyle Lowry, and it cost them. But now they're all in on building and trying to win the championship now. So you think you beating a healthy Lakers team with what
right.
Steph had arguably his best individual season ever, arguably. You didn't even make the playoffs.
Thank you. The guy was in the conversation for MVP.
Right. So what do you do? Draymond was there too. You just missed Klay. But look, I'll give Golden State some credit that they're going to be, I think they'll be a good playoff team this year if Klay can be Klay. But Klay by himself, Rob, not with what the Lakers, and I know the Lakers are a mishmash and it's going to be a chemistry experiment, but still, the talent is there. You're lucky that, the Clippers may not be whole because of Kawhi. Phoenix has emerged. Denver is probably going to keep getting a little more and more experience and better. There's other teams. Dallas is coming with Luka. Like, they've got to be building, Rob. What does our man Antonio Daniels always say? It's an arms race.
It's an arms race, 100%.
Go get your weapons. Go get your ammunition.
And you can't you can't compete with a starter pistol. You know what I mean? Like there's some young guys, and you just can't wait and hope that they're going to develop. Right. Because what if they don't? What if they don't?
Right. I'm with you. And look, I like Kuminga. He looks good. Wiseman, I've always liked him in Golden State. But, if there's a reasonable deal where I can upgrade and have a chance to win the championship now, then that's what I'm trying to do.